All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the monthly IPA tutorial for January 2019. This session is recorded, so if you have to run, um, you can always check it out later. It'll be emailed through the IPA announcement mailing list. And what I'm going to do this time and every time is discuss sort of a pre-prepared topic. In this case, it's going to be budgets and how budget scenarios work. And then anyone who's here live, at the end of that, we can just go ahead and answer questions either about what I've shown or just about anything else, really. If you have a specific IPA question, I'd be happy to answer it. So today I'd like to talk about the budget, and specifically I'd like to go over what we call a budget scenario. And I'd like to explain this because the way scenarios work is going to change in the near future. Nothing's going to be removed. It's not a dramatic change, but let me just get started here. The budget, as you know, takes data from the rest of IPA and enables you to put costs to that data. So if I click over here on the schedule cost tab, and then you can see here we're in fall quarter. I have all of my courses from my courses page. I have the number of TAs, which has been pulled from my support assignments page. I even will have the instructors, which is pulled over from the teaching call and the instructor assignments page. So all of this data from the rest of IPA gets kind of funneled into the budget module, and then I can start setting costs. And so you can see here, because it knows that I have 4 TAs and I already have a TA cost, it just does the quick multiplication for me to determine a TA cost, adds the reader cost, does the support cost. You know, all of this I think is pretty straightforward and obvious. But the budget module enables you to do something called scenarios, which is exactly what it sounds like. Essentially, it lets us have a budget file, if you will, or a scenario that differs from the rest of IPA. So you can run scenarios such as, what if I hired an extra TA? What if I canceled this course? What if I added this course? What if I had to hire an AI? And you can see how those numbers would look, and you can do this by running this in parallel with your other scenarios. So you can have multiple scenarios going on. The way that you create a scenario is by utilizing this area in the upper left where it says budget scenario, and then it'll say the name of your scenario. But if you click this, you can see a list of scenarios, or you can drop down and click create budget scenario. What this is going to do is ask you a few questions. It wants to know what data to start with. That's what it's asking where it says create from. So we can either start with data from another scenario, essentially copy and paste another scenario to begin our new scenario. Or we can copy from scheduled data, which means just whatever the rest of IPA has, you know, the TA numbers, the course existence, the instructor assignments, we'll just go ahead and use that. And then, of course, give it a name. And then this copy funds option, you can see I can't do anything with it in the scheduled data version. But if I was copying from another scenario, I could basically say, don't copy the funds tab. This defaults to on. It's up to you. And then you could click create. Just before this meeting, I actually went ahead and did that. I made a scenario called demo scenario, and I just created it from my scheduled data. So what we see here on this screen matches perfectly with the rest of IPA. So for instance, here's History 2 in the fall quarter with 4 TAs. And if I jump over to support assignments, we'll see History 2, fall quarter with 4 TAs, right? So everything makes sense here. But this is where scenarios come into play, and this is an important concept. Let's say I change this from 4 to 5, and you can see IPA tells me right away it saves. As you may know, IPA doesn't really have save buttons. It just kind of saves as you go. So now we have 5 TAs here, but then if I click back to the budget, excuse any sniffling, I'm getting over whatever's going around. You'll see here for History 2 in the fall quarter, it still says 4, and this new icon has appeared next to it. This is the nature of scenarios in action. A scenario basically means I want nothing to change in this budget scenario that a human doesn't explicitly say, yes, that change is okay. the reason for this is if you have, you're a graduate coordinator or an undergraduate coordinator or someone else in some other role using IPA modifying the data, you might not want that to be modifying your budget. You don't want the bottom line to be changing, and then you have to figure out why did it change, what changed, who changed it. So that's the purpose of a budget scenario. It lets you do that. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago that we're going to be changing the way budget scenarios work. And what I mean by that is shortly, hopefully this week, perhaps next week, we'll be adding a new budget scenario option called live data. And so this is for all of you out there who maybe don't like what I just said, who say, I want my budget to just always match the rest of IPA. If someone deletes a course, if they change the number of TAs, I don't want to have to go through my budget and click, yes, change the number of TAs, yes, add this course, yes, add this reader. I just want it to automatically be up to date. So if that's you, that is coming very shortly in the form of a live data option. The scenarios will always stick around, and you can go ahead and just make them to your heart's content. I want to mention quickly, one thing that people enjoy using scenarios for that I've just seen in the wild is creating a budget scenario to just have a snapshot in time. So if you just want to say, I just want to capture what my budget looked like on January 22nd, 2019, you can make a budget scenario, title it January 22nd, 2019, and then just never use it. Just switch back to whatever your normal scenario is. And then at least you have these snapshots and you can kind of see what the budgets look like. And those snapshots, of course, you can run all the reports on them. So the live data change is coming soon, and there'll be an announcement on IPA Announce. So if you're not on the IPA-Announce at UC Davis mailing list, I recommend hopping on it. But for now, you only have the option to use budget scenarios. So the question then remains, how do I reconcile this data? So I said the number of TAs differed in the support assignments module, and it's very simple. You can see right here, this icon appears here, but not here. Well, it doesn't appear down here because the number of TAs between the budget and the support assignments module is in complete agreement. But up here, it's not. And if I hover, it just tells me, hey, the schedule has 5, you have 4, what do you want to do? You can either click this button, in which it says, yes, I want to confirm. Or if we switch the number here, you'll notice it doesn't matter where I switch it, whether I switch it in the support assignments or in the budget, just the fact that it's different causes this to come up. If you happen to switch it to the right number, the button goes away for you. So you don't have to worry about that. That's how you bring TAs up to date. But as I mentioned, the entire existence of a course can even drift in a budget scenario. So let's say I was going to cancel History 2 entirely. So I'll go in here, or let me go ahead and actually say we're going to offer History 2 in the winter quarter. So I'll just say there's going to be 100 seats, and we'll just go ahead, make 4 sections really quick. This is a good demonstration of how to use the courses module if you've never used it. So now History 2A is offered in the winter quarter. If I click back to the budget though, make sure I'm still in the demo scenario, which I am, schedule costs, go to the winter quarter tab, you'll see History 2A is not here. So what's going on? Well, again, since that live data option doesn't exist yet, I'm in a budget scenario. And the existence of a course, something changing outside of IPA, is not going to be reflected in the budget scenario right away. For TAs, there was that little revert icon button that I could click. Well, what do I do if an entire course is missing? Well, currently what you do is you go to this course list tab. That's what this course list tab is for. This shows you how your courses differ. And you'll see indeed, here's History 2. There's a little exclamation mark next to it. It says this course is scheduled but not budgeted. So I can just go ahead and click this add course button. And now if I go back to schedule costs, there it is. Everything's back up to date. You can even do the inverse. You can remove a course from a budget without removing it from the rest of IPA. And as you may have guessed, you go over to the course list screen and you just click remove course. Now the course is no longer budgeted. If I go back to schedule costs, it doesn't appear here. But you'll see if I go to courses, I haven't touched the rest of my data. The winter quarter offering is still here, as you can see with these 4 sections of 25. So that's the basics of of what we call schedule drift and the nature of scenarios. And I just want to repeat again, because this is an upcoming change. This week or next week, we're going to be launching a new option that you'll be able to access here in the budget scenario dropdown that we're going to call something like live data. And live data basically means I don't want to use a scenario. I just want to be budgeting whatever's in the rest of IPA. So if someone deletes a course, it just disappears from the budget. If someone changes the number of TAs, the number of TAs is just automatically reflected in the budget. And then that way you have the choice. If you want to budget your live IPA data, you can do that without having to click all those sync buttons. But if you do want to use scenarios, they'll still be around. So the current behavior won't go away. We're really just adding a new option. So that's all that I really wanted to talk about, because again, that change is coming soon. Again, I'll announce it on IPA Announce. But if anyone has any questions now, feel free to ask them now, either through the chat, or you can even just unmute your microphone and ask. It can be about this or any other part of IPA. Or of course, you can always email ipahelp@ucdavis.edu if you'd prefer to get private help.
Christopher, it's Michelle.
Hi.
Hi. Can you remind me how we associate the TA cost, the actual dollar amount?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. And as part of that, I'll go over IPA's sort of costing method, because it can be a little, I don't want to use the word convoluted, but it has a couple of mysterious things that it does. So if you just want to set the cost of a TA, we take this TA number, which by the way can be a decimal. Some people use this as FTE. So for one TA, they might put in 0.5. Other people will just put in 1 for the number of people. It's completely up to you, but IPA considers it to be a unitless number. And what we do is we just take this number, we multiply it by a TA cost to get this result. And that TA cost is set by clicking on instructor list and then going into category costs, and then you simply set it right there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So yeah, so that's important if you're going to use 0.5 for one TA, be sure to adjust this accordingly. As of right now, IPA doesn't track, percentage of appointments, which might be something in the future. And just since you asked the question, I want to go over how these costs are calculated. So you'll see for instructor cost, you have a couple of options. You can either override the cost immediately, and now that becomes the instructor cost for this course. Or if this box is cleared out, it's going to pull this cost from first the salary of Daniel, because he's been assigned here. And then if it can't find Daniel's salary, it'll see what type of instructor Daniel is, and it'll pull it from that. So if Daniel had been, I happen to know he's ladder faculty, but had he been an AI and we set an AI cost, that would get pulled here. So good question.
Christopher, Michelle again. What's the difference between instructor and the REG instructor?
Oh, that's a good question. The REG stands for regular, and it's an optional field that's purely for your purposes, that was recommended to us by a department that likes to track who they're replacing when they do an instructor replacement. So instructor is always the person who is actually teaching the course. So for academic year 1920, fall quarter, Daniel's teaching this course, and that's just sort of the end of that. But under regular instructor, we could say that it's normally Gerald. And so this just kind of lets us know, hey, this is normally Gerald's course, but we're replacing it with Daniel. This has budgetary consequences for some departments, because they like to then maybe track Gerald's replacement funds. Maybe they'll go in here and even make a comment saying, the funds for this AI are coming from Gerald's replacement funds. But if that doesn't matter for your department, or that doesn't make sense, again, it's a completely optional field. So if anyone has any outstanding feature requests or bugs, please feel free to get in touch. We have quite a queue going on right now. And we're very focused on the budget. So especially if you have any budget requests or budget concerns, please let us know. Again, we're going to be shipping that live data feature, which basically lets you operate outside of a scenario and you don't have to worry about TAs and courses being out of sync. We're going to be shipping that pretty soon. We'll announce it at IPA Announce. And if you have any further questions, if you come up with any questions or ideas, or if you even just want to talk, schedule a tutorial, anything like that, please just get in touch at ipahelp@ucdavis.edu.